Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. I do gotta make this one kind of quickly, so I'll see how much I can cover. We do have an enhanced risk for central Oklahoma going up into through southern central Kansas in going west into western Kansas. So it's going to be covering a large part of the Midwest today, as well as a pretty large slight risk around that going as far south as central Texas here, and as far north as Nebraska, as well as into Colorado as well, with a pretty big marginal risk around that going all the way north into North Dakota. And then we also got another slight risk down here for Mississippi. And then if we look at our hazards threat, we got a, this was actually decreased since the last time I looked at it, and it makes more sense now. There's a 10% risk for central Oklahoma with the Hatch significant threat, so we could see the possibility of one or two violent tornadoes, as well as another small 10% with a 5% risk for pretty much most of the enhanced risk and the slight risk, as well as a 5% chance for the slight risk that you saw down there, with a 2% risk and the 2% risk is going as far north as South Dakota. And as far south as central Texas, as well as let's look at the wind threat. We got a 15%, no Hatch significant threat, but then also a 15% down here for Mississippi. And then also let's look at the hail threat. We got a Hatch significant threat, as well as a 30% threat for that enhanced risk area, as well as a 15% around that, and a 5% going as far north as North Dakota. So, but then we don't got an increase down here. It's just 5%. So, before I continue, I do need to note that I will most likely not be able to post a forecast in the coming days for the next 4 days. The next time I will most likely be able to post a forecast is on the, let's see here, on the 16th is most likely the next time I'll be able to post a forecast. So let's get on with it. Let's take a look at our 500 millibars here. We do got that low pressure system that was triggering severe weather across Colorado, which was actually the biggest tornado threat that Colorado has seen in the last 3 years. So it was pretty significant. But now it's moved a little bit to the east and is it is cyclonically rotating, as well as being negatively tilted, so it is expected to draw tons of moisture out of the southern regions of the United States here. But then we also got the trough that is along the southeastern side of that low pressure system here, that is expected to trigger severe weather going forward into Oklahoma and Kansas. If we watch it continue, we can see this is as far as I can go for some reason, but you can see it is pushing on the tons of moisture that is to the eastern side, the eastern side, and expected to cause a dry line to develop, a very intense dry line too at that. Dropping down to our lower levels here, you can still see the low pressure system here with the cyclonically rotating motion. You can see in the wind vectors here that is ejecting tons of low-level winds across Oklahoma down through Kansas, mostly in that enhanced risk area that you saw there. And this is expected to cause the potential for very strong wind shear throughout the area, as well as triggering any severe weather development that could happen and very much will happen today, as well as, again, causing the potential for very strong wind shear. Taking a look at our dew points here, keep in mind the low pressure system is still situated along that area, as well as the strong southwesterly winds to push on all the moisture that you see here, the very, very deep moisture throughout much of the Midwest. You can see it pushing on the moisture here between very high 60s and possibly even into the 70s, where there's more deeper moisture throughout central Oklahoma. Not so much through Kansas, but still tons of moisture throughout Kansas, and still sufficient enough to fuel severe weather development. But with more increased moisture down here, it is expected to be probably more explosive than, say, in Kansas. But you can see the very intense dry line developing here between dew points that are in the 20s going immediately over to dew points that are in the upper 60s. So this is a very, very intense dry line here that is through central Texas and expected to trigger very explosive systems through Oklahoma. So everything's going off today with a very strong dry line, as well as the potential for very strong wind shear, as well as with this dry line and the strong low-level winds, possibly allowing for very strong instability too. So we'll take a look at that in a minute. Before I take a look at the instability here, I would like to look at the composite reflectivity here. You can see going forward the first line of storms developing with a low pressure system situated right here. You can see a surface front develop and trigger severe weather development through eastern Oklahoma up through Kansas in a very linear fashion, a very linear storm mode here. And then a second round of storm development with that dry line through Oklahoma, as well as the still persisting surface front boundary. But you can see that those isolated storms are expected to rapidly increase or organize into a organized line. So we're looking at a very linear storm mode here, and then continuing forward a little bit. See that it does kind of spread out a little bit, but it is still mostly clumped together, but becomes a little bit more isolated as it continues eastward, as it begins to fizzle out over Arkansas. Now taking a look at our instability here, you can see continuing forward, large amounts of very unstable air is drawn north by the negatively tilted low pressure system that is situated right here still, as well as the strong southwesterly winds pushing on the moisture, and you can still see the dry line here. In causing lots of instability because of the lower level winds and the strong dry line that's developing. With all that very unstable air being drawn up north, you can see over towards the northern reaches where we had the smaller 10% risk, it is mostly more moderate instability. But then where we had the hatch significant threat and the 10% risk, see it is much more unstable than up further north. And you can see continuing forward, it is expected to continue to stay that way with very unstable air. Then even into tomorrow, we get another increase in very unstable air here with Cape levels that are in the simulated values of the 5,000s. So because of how it's such a widespread area, not just in tiny spots, we could definitely see the possibility of Cape levels that do get very, very close to 5,000 through the Oklahoma City area and trigger the potential for very large hail tomorrow. But for today, mainly, you see that there is very much more unstable air down through the Oklahoma area than there is further up north with that hatch significant threat. And then also, because of this large instability here, it is causing the potential for some very large hail to develop. With that hatch significant threat on hail as well, we could see upwards of 1 to 2 inches of hail down through the enhanced risk area. And it could very well damage roofs, windows, and vehicles. So this could be a dangerous situation in terms of hail as well as tornadoes as well. Taking a look at our surface instability here, keeping in mind the low pressure system that is still situated over here in this area here, we can see that dry line we can see along the dry line that is developed here. You can see very strong surface instability here, especially through Kansas here, where we had that more isolated 10% risk. Very strong surface instability, but I'm not sure about wind shear yet, so I can't really make a determination that because that area has stronger surface instability, that there's going to be more of a tornado threat. But there is very sufficient enough surface instability down through Oklahoma as well as through Kansas and along that boundary as it continues to move northeastward. You can see that surface instability continues to carry along with it. Even if it does diminishes widespread, it still carries along some very decent surface instability. And then going into tomorrow, you can see also strong surface instability along that dry line that we saw, especially in Oklahoma, where you can see very strong surface instability to allow for the potential of a very strong uptrap, as well as the very strong surface instability coupled with the weaker overall instability in this area could potentially be affecting the tornado threat, making it less through that specific area of the Kansas area. But then the increased instability through Oklahoma could be also enhancing the tornado threat and making it more significant than the Kansas area. And then finally, if we take a look at our wind shear here, again, keep in mind the low pressure system situated along this area with the strong southwesterly flow. You can see that continuing forward, you can see very strong wind shear developing here. This is the first line of storms here that you can see draping along down through Kansas into Oklahoma, as well as by the time the storms start developing in Oklahoma, very strong wind shear is what I'm trying to say here. I'm getting stuck on my words, but much stronger wind shear than what we're looking at down here or up there, and that is expected to continue as it continues with very strong wind shear in these areas, and not so much further up north, allowing for the potential of more violent tornadoes further down south. But if you're eyeing these deeper reds here and looking like you're saying something like, oh, that's pretty strong wind shear, that could be something significant. It is not along or ahead of the storm system at all, so it is most likely not going to affect the storm systems in any way and make the storms in Kansas much more violent than the ones that are down in Oklahoma, because it is not going to be it's not going to affect the storms in any way because it is not along or ahead of the storm systems. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator, and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator, and I will most likely see you guys with another forecast on the 16th.